I'm going to bring a very familiar portion of Scripture because that's something I want to deal with. I have to deal with this every once in a while because it is so powerful in our lives. It's called choices. Choices. Joshua, in his last address to Israel, they had conquered the land. The battles were over. There were relative peace. And Joshua, he said, choose you this day who you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. The seed that you sowed last year is what you are reaping today. The choices you make today will dominate and determine the quality of your life tomorrow. The choices you made yesterday is what you're living today. You are the product of your choices. And there's no such thing as indecision, because you either choose to do something or you choose to do nothing. There's no such thing as indecision. Choices are always made. You are responsible for your choices. You're an addict by choice. You're an alcoholic by choice. You're here today by choice. You made a decision this morning. This is the Lord's day. I will go to God's house. You made a choice. A lot of people didn't make the choice to be in God's house today, but you did. You made a choice. We live in a day and a country where nobody wants to take responsibility anymore. We always want to blame someone else for our problems. It's the government, it's the parents, it's the husband, the wife, the teachers, it's the church, it's the pastor. But it's not my fault, it's always somebody else's fault. We don't want to take responsibility for doing anything. I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to be responsible. I let someone else do it. Church, there is more to salvation than just showing up at church once in a while when it's convenient. What is so important about being in God's house? Why do I tell you you need to be faithful? Because that choice not only affects you, it affects the people around you. That what you choose to do or choose not to do is going to have an impact on someone besides you. America seems to have adopted the philosophy of escapism. We live in a throwaway society anymore. If you don't like it, throw it away. Get rid of it. In our marriages, it's don't like it, throw it away. Escape. Run. Quit. Bail out. Marriage problems can be resolved and solved. But you can never solve a problem by running from it. People say my marriage is having problems. No, your marriage is not. Marriages do not have problems. People have problems. Say my marriage, no, it's not your marriage that's in trouble. It's you that's in trouble. Because of choices you made. I'm afraid it's affecting our young people today too. If you don't like school, quit. It's too hard, too rough. Escape. Is it unreasonable for a teacher to expect you to do your homework? Is it unreasonable for a teacher to expect you to show up at class on time? Is it unreasonable for a teacher to expect you to have some good study habits? I think this is where we have a problem today. Because school is to teach you how to learn, to teach you good study habits. Boy got an F on his grade card and went to his teacher and said, I don't think I deserve this F. Teacher said, I don't either, but that's the lowest grade I could give. It's troubling that churches today is producing a generation that does not understand that choices have consequences. They do not understand that the choice you make today will determine the quality of your life tomorrow. Some choices affect you immediately, but there are some choices that will affect you for the rest of your life. If you quit school, that will be with you the rest of your life. Girls, listen, young people, young ladies, if you get pregnant, that will affect you the rest of your life. That baby that you hold in your arms will be yours for the rest of your life. Decisions you make today can affect you for the rest of your life. What about your choice to serve God? That's the most important decision you will ever make in this life. Because that decision not only affects you in this life, that's a decision that will affect you for eternity. Some say, well, I just haven't made up my mind yet. Oh, yes, you have. If you don't know or you haven't made up your mind, you've made your decision. So you better change your decision. If serving God requires discipline, faithfulness, sacrifice, hardship, well, I'm not going to do it. You know, what if the apostles had said that? Did you know they all died a martyr's death for their faith? If it's too hard, just quit, escape, run. If the pastor expects you to do something, run. Not going to do anything. If the pastor expects you to be faithful, I'm not going to do it. If the pastor expects you to grow up, just run, quit, escape. Escapism mentality in the church. And it's everywhere. Fear is everywhere. If there's a giant between you and the promised land, just run, escape. If there's a lion's den, run, escape. If there's a fiery furnace, run, escape. If there is a Gethsemane, if there is a Calvary, if there's a cross, run. But when you run, you miss the will of God. Because when you run, you're not where you're supposed to be. And you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Life does not consist of what you want to do. Life consists of what you ought to do. What about your choice of your work ethic? It seems that nobody wants to work anymore. Oh, they want a job and they want a salary, they want to get a check, but they just don't want to work. Most people quit working as soon as they find a job. They're working all week with one thing in mind, Friday. TGIF, thank God it's Friday. They're always looking forward for another holiday. We are producing a generation of deadbeats, always wanting something for nothing. They just don't want to work. We want progress without change. We want success without struggle. We want wealth without work. And we want earnings without effort. The way you perform at work is a picture of the person that you are. If the boss can't leave you to work and do your job without keeping his eye on you, if you've got sloppy work habits, if you show up late, leave early, if you move like cold molasses, don't tell your boss or anybody else that you're a Christian. And please do not tell them that you go to the sheep shed. Tell them you're an atheist. God said, if a man will not work, neither shall he eat. I could solve a lot of the financial problems that our country's having. Just take the people that can work and won't work off of welfare and food stamps. Now wait, don't misunderstand. If you cannot work, I said won't work. If you can't work, if you're handicapped, some way you are not capable of working, then we need a much stronger support system and safety net in this country than we have for those that can't do it. But for those sorry ones that won't do it, I have absolutely no respect for them. You know, if you've been around me very long, you know that I have 3 rules that I live by and 3 rules that this church operates by. We have the golden rule. Jeremy mentioned that. Do unto others, you'd have them do unto you. We have the silver rule. Do at least as much for yourself as you do for others. And I have the iron rule. Never do for others what they can and should do for themselves. You need to get excited about your job, because if you don't, somebody else will. When you go to work, you realize if you're not making your boss money, he doesn't need you. You need to go to work and put yourself into it. Well, if I had a better job, if I got better pay, paid me better, I'd do better. That's a lie. The job does not make the man makes the job. It's not the man in the fight, it's the fight that's in the man. Daniel was greater in the lion's den than Nebuchadnezzar was on the king's throne. It depends on what's in you, not what you're in. Well, Mack, I've heard this all my life. Mack, you sure are lucky. I found out a long time ago, the harder I worked, the luckier I got. Choice, not chance, determines what your life is going to be. Well, Mack, what if I fail? Well, what if you succeed? By the way, you cannot fail. The only way you can fail is if you quit. Because as long as you're still trying, you haven't failed. And when you quit, you can't win. I don't care how talented you may be. I don't care how intelligent you may be. When you quit, you can't win. There's a lot of intelligent, talented people that are failures in life. If you get knocked down, just get up, wipe the blood off, and get back in the fight. Just grit your teeth. I am a child of God. Quitting is beneath my dignity. I will cross the line. If I have to crawl across the line, I'll finish my course. Some people are so afraid of criticism, they never do anything. People are going to talk about you. If you're good, they're going to talk about you if you're bad. They're going to talk about you if you're rich, and they're going to talk about you if you're poor. So if they're going to talk about you anyway, let them talk about you because you're good and rich instead of bad and poor. So afraid of what people are going to think. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about them. And they're probably more concerned about what you think of them than you are about what they think of you. In fact, most people don't think, period. So what difference does it make what they think? What about your choice in marriage? You going to quit? Escape? Run? America is full of marital refugees. She discovered that her dream lover was a nightmare. And he discovered that she has a great personality for a Gila monster. If your marriage is not what you want it to be, instead of looking for ways of escape, start looking for ways to put some life and excitement and some fire back in your marriage. Look for ways to solve the problem. Don't look for ways or reasons to escape. We live in a society that's always looking for something with more excitement. We like excitement. Hey, the idea, I think it was Apostle Peter said, the desire for strange flesh. Exciting, thrilling. Something new, something different. People run from marriage. Just quit, throw it away. They're always looking for something new and exciting, a new marriage, new partner, new church, church to church. We have become a nation with no control, no discipline, and no loyalty. Pastor preaches something I don't like, I'll just go somewhere else. No loyalty. I will grow you up if you stay around. Choices. You can run, but you cannot escape yourself. You can change jobs, churches, mates, but wherever you go, when you look in the mirror, there's all of your trouble looking back at you. I don't know where people got the idea that life is supposed to be a bed of roses, just tiptoe through the tulips. The Bible talks about hardships to endure, fiery trials to go through, crosses to bear, tribulations. Jesus talked about hold of the plow and not looking back. He talked about being faithful unto death, and then he would give you a crown of life. He talks about fighting giants, facing lions. You ought to read Hebrews 11 about the heroes of faith. They fought the giants, they faced lions, they fought the good fight of faith. He talks about putting on the armor of God, and I've told you, you don't need the armor of God if you're not going to get in the fight. He talks about wrestling, running a race, enduring to the end. If you want to win, dig in and try again. I'm going to give you 3 quick things, and then I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to quit. Number 1, you cannot win without discipline. If you don't learn to control yourself, you will ultimately destroy yourself. Number 2, Number 1, you cannot win without discipline. You cannot win without duty. Being faithful and doing what God has given you to do. Do it. Do it if it's pleasant. Do it if it's not pleasant. Do it if you feel like it, and do it if you don't feel like it. Do it if you want to, and do it if you don't want to. Just do it. Duty. Do your duty. I promise you this, Gethsemane was not pleasant for Jesus. Calvary was not pleasant for Jesus. And the cross was not pleasant for Jesus. But he did it. And the reason he did it for you. The reason you do your duty is not always for yourself. The reason you're faithful to God's house is not always for yourself. Sometimes it's because of the influence that you have on someone else. and your testimony is at stake. Number one, you cannot win without discipline. You cannot win without duty, and you cannot win without determination. Just grit your teeth. I will not quit until my race is run and my battle is won. And then when you come to the last day of your life and you close your eyes for the last time, you'll be able to say, I fought a good fight. I kept the faith. I finished my course. I ran my race. That's what I want to say. That's what I want you to say. When we all stand before God, and I see you step up, and you say, I didn't quit. I made it. You look over and say, thanks, Pastor, because you didn't quit on me, and you wouldn't let me quit on you. I want to be proud. I want to hold my head high and my shoulders back when I see you walk up before God. Choices. When Leonardo da Vinci was painting the Last Supper, he chose to use live models for each of the apostles and for Jesus. He was going to paint Jesus first, and he spent weeks and weeks. He looked at hundreds of young men, trying to find a model with a face and a personality that was free from the scars, the grief, and the hardness of sin. He chose a 19-year-old young man as a model for Jesus. He spent 6 months painting the central character of Jesus. He worked for 6 years, one by one choosing the model that would represent each of the apostles. The last one was Judas Iscariot. And he searched for weeks and weeks to find a man with a hard, callous face, marked by the scars of deceit, the hardness and pain of sin, a face that would show the character of a person who would betray their best friend. He found a 26-year-old man in a dungeon in Rome, sentenced to die for a life of crime and murder. A man with a face that was scarred, marked by the cruelty, the hardness of sin and ruin. This was the man that he chose to represent Judas Iscariot. By special permission from the king, the prisoner was taken under guard to Milan, where he sat for 6 months as Da Vinci painted the picture of the man that would betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. When he had finished with the painting, he put his brush down and he said to the guards, "You may return the prisoner back to prison." And the young man fell on his knees and said, "Don't you know who I am?" Da Vinci had been looking at him for 6 months, and he said, "I never saw you until the day that I saw you in the dungeon in Rome." And the man said, "But I am the same man that you painted 7 years ago as Jesus." Choices. Choices. Choose you this day whom you will serve. Choices have consequences. Some of you thinking about quitting on your marriage, giving up on your family, your job, your dream, your educational pursuit. Maybe some of you thinking about quitting church, giving up on God. Or maybe you've already quit. Oh, you may still come around once in a while when it's convenient. but in your heart you've already quit. You're not involved. You're not doing anything. You've become a spectator. Start looking for reasons to be in God's house, not reasons to miss. Look forward to being there. Dig in, try again, and you'll win. Choice not only affects you, it affects those that are around you. It affects your family. And it will affect those that follow you. It's interesting, and you may want to check this out and read the whole thing. When Joshua said, "Choose you this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." They said, "God forbid that we serve anyone except the God that brought us out of Egypt and into the promised land." That was the last chapter. That was verse 15 in chapter 24 of Joshua. Last chapter. Judges is the next book. Start reading chapter 1. And when you get to Judges 2, it talks about what the people had done. They had turned their backs on God, started worshiping idols. And it tells all of the things that they did and said God was angry with them. And he turned them over to their enemies to be spoiled by their enemies. The enemies to spoil, to take from them everything they had. And then in verse 17, Judges 2, it said, Israel went a-whoring after false gods, and they forsook the gods of Israel. When all of those that had died, from Joshua, all of those that had died, a new generation rose up that did not know the God of Israel. Church, if we're not careful, we're going to have a generation rise up that does not know God. If you have teenagers, young people, you need to have them in Epic on Sunday nights. I know it's an effort to drive. It's an effort to make it. But you go to far greater efforts than that to get them at some stupid sporting event or school activity, extracurricular activity. But you say it's too far to drive to get them in God's house on Sunday night where they can get the help and the courage to make it another week at school. Mack, you've been sort of tough lately. Some of you have made some bad decisions. Some of you need to make some changes in your life. You can't change what you've done. And sometimes you just can't change the damage that you've caused. But thank God we have a God who offers us all a second chance. You do it again.